Does anyone have any other announcements before we get started? All right, and I've dropped the minutes link in the chat, so if you have any new business you'd like to talk about, you can add that now while we're talking as well. Gary, I know you'd sent me an email about some possible new Grape locations.
Right. I reached out to 3 people who had contacted us and shown interest earlier. Or no, I reached out to 5 people. 3 of them have accepted. So we've got 3 new sites for the Grape 1 DRS that W1XP has been repairing. And I'll keep working on the other 2 and try to fill them.
Very nice. I think with Dr. Frizzell out, Kung is probably also out as well. So no news on Grape 2 Eclipse data yet, except that it seems promising. All right, Dave, do you want to talk about the repository?
Oh, yeah. Yesterday we had the repository go down again, and it was short-lived, which was really good, but it just keeps pointing out that, you know, there are issues, and unfortunately on my end, I'm not the one that is managing the FTP site. What happened last night was just a simple mistake. Darren, who is our webmaster, who is trying to get out of being the webmaster, he managed to get all the files off the server and archived and zipped up, and we'll be getting that information to me, and I'll get, you know, that stuff to Christina. Christina also got all the data that she needed in the repository. The Zenodo is good through I think it was June, right? Isn't that right, Christina? You've got it updated. So the problem that occurred was that Darren did all this great work, you know, putting everything together. He forgot to empty the trash, as simple as that. And so our amount of data that we had still violated the GoDaddy limit. And so they put us on suspension again. Darren called them immediately after I brought it up late yesterday afternoon and got a hold of GoDaddy and got those files cleared off as easy as, you know, remove, enter, and it's done. And GoDaddy reinstated us. So the repository is up and running, and I hope that everything yesterday got uploaded. If it didn't, hopefully the buffers work well so that they get uploaded tonight. But it just raised the issue of, I think we really do need to talk about what is the long-term solution for the data storage, because we just haven't, you know, we've talked about it and it's been weeks, and I don't know how we're going to move forward. But I just feel like what we're providing at the club is not sufficient for what we're going to try to do with all the data that potentially is going to pour in. And it would be nice to have it at a different site. I'm not saying we won't continue to do it. We'll do it as long as we can. But again, it was supposed to be temporary initially when we did this. And I think we need to make an effort to move to finding another FTP repository. Christina has someone already looking into it. Christina, do you want to comment on that at all, or your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would just start by echoing what you said about the it being very timely for us to move over. I was looking at the size of the zip files that are now in the current version of the Zenodo page, and it's something like, you know, 100 megs for all of 2019, 150 for all of 2020, and by the time you get to 2024, we're generating like, you know, 4 gigs a month, and it's consistently climbing, which is good news for us. But you know, given the trajectory that we're on for even just the Grape 1 data, it's definitely a good time to move over to something. So Ben's here with me, and he's who I always turn to set up a server. So I'm just gonna let him take the con.
So I've been looking at a few different options depending on what our budgets are. The cheapest of which would just be, we just get a small server, put it in my basement because I have a server rack in the house, and just point the website at that server. Set up something FTP, we'd upgrade our internet here so we'd have good upload, good download, and just do that. The other method that I was looking into was going to ask Case if we could put a server in one of their server rooms, thereby taking advantage of the fact that they've got a nice static IP address. It's never going to change, plenty of cooling, plenty of power backup. And more importantly, since we're using it for research data, I don't see why they'd say no.
Did they allow FTP transfers where people are getting away from that, but we did that just because it was simple.
That's what I need to ask them about, because I know that they used to allow it about 15 years ago, but I don't know what their current policies are.
Is that through the KSL repository system?
It could be through that, or it could be, I talked with some of the server admins and see if we could literally just put our own server in the rack.
Okay.
It sounds like good
I
options to
think that,
explore.
we do have a server and a whole system running at University of Alabama that we could provide this without any additional cost, I think. I mean, why not? Why don't we just integrate the systems? I'm just offering that. I know that there's always a value in having diversity in some of these systems, but if it's causing a bit of a crisis, we might want to consider just integrating that with what we're doing with the Grape ones and the Whisper gaming equipment. We just put it into the UA system. That way you have a cross-reference on the website and everything. So if you want to do that, consider it.
Hey, Bill, would the UA servers get updates? I mean, the operating system, whether they're running Linux or Windows or, you know, Tomahawk behind the scenes, you kind of got to keep that stuff rolling forward. Otherwise you end up with security issues and all that, right?
Yeah, the system is under the care and feeding of the university IT department. So it is an official UA server that gets all the security as any UA server.
It gets
So,
backed up and everything too, right?
oh yeah, it's backed up off site, in fact. So.
Right.
So
Well, they sound like, both of them sound like good things to explore, both the case and the possibility of working with their server room and also at Alabama. I think it makes sense to just, you know, knock on the door of the next person to ask and
yeah.
kind of go from there. But as long as we, and I don't know if we're at a crisis, not yet. I mean, we're discovering our limits. I think the crisis exists with us and our management of our site, and we're trying to work towards that. Darren has been very ill of late, and actually was in the hospital on Monday. So we would like to take this load off of his back, and it's just you know, the issue is the knowledge transfer of how he's got it set up and finding the right time to get people together to move that knowledge. So I was never really wanting to become a web server manager, webmaster, and also I'm not really wanting to get into the programming end of things. So if we can get some of you guys that are good at all the other interactions with the computer to take this on, that'd be great. So that's about all I've got to say about the repository right now. So I think things went through, and we'll see tonight, I guess.
I would say that Bill's proposal of putting it at Alabama should probably be option one. And Ben and I will poke around here and ask Case IT about using putting a server at Case or using their service, and we'll report back on our findings on whether that's something we'd be able to do.
Yeah, the advantage of UA is that it's already paid for.
Yeah.
And now we would want to switch over to using LFTP rather than straight FTP, but it's almost a drop-in replacement. So.
Well, the other
As
thing
long
is,
as it can be,
there a way to do this that doesn't involve updating all the scripts on all the servers or on all the grapes.
well, we would have to you'd have to update all the scripts.
Okay.
You'd have to have you know, if you're going to a different file transfer and a different and passwords and everything. So.
Yeah, it would involve, I mean, it would involve that all of the stations each have a user ID in the personal space with the station network, which is no big deal. It's just that it's like an accounting exercise.
And you have a lot of people that have accounts that aren't contributing data, correct?
Well, I say it. Probably more than half of the accounts are contributing data. We did kill a few ones that were obviously created and then abandoned, but I mean, anybody can open up an account because you have to have an account to download. But if the account is free, I mean, and there's no personal identifiable information other than an email address in there. So
Could that be done as an automatic update, or would we have to do it manually?
We can do it for Grape 2 automatically, but I think Grape 1 will need to be manual. Each user.
Version 1 and also the DRF would both have to be done.
Yeah.
now you have, I'm sure that there is a spreadsheet or database or something somewhere that has a list of all the users and their email addresses. Possibly we could use, if such a thing exists, possibly we could use that to mass create these accounts. I mean,
Yeah,
I think we
John.
could probably do it cleverly. So
John has it. Go ahead, Christina.
I was just gonna say, I think John has that list, and I actually am interested in the current version of that list because I still don't have access to it. So I've had to ask John to send me copies, and I don't like bugging him. So actually, Gary, do you know if there's a single universal copy besides the one he has, or if there's a way that we could all access that as a shared document?
No, you've explained how it is. The last one I've seen was probably back in April, so that should be on our wish list.
Okay, well, as of yesterday, we are now officially receiving funding from NSF for this, and starting in January, that starts officially being my job. So I'll have to talk to him about getting that list, and making sure that we have a copy of it.
Christina, since you brought up NSF, where can I get the information about the grant? I went to the NSF site and they only have the grants from last year up and current. Is there a place to go and see the grant?
That's a really good question. It should have a there's a number associated with the granting program, and then there should be a number associated with our grant that kind of includes like a brief summary and things like that. I don't know if that second one would be up yet. I would imagine it would, but I haven't actually checked.
Can
So
you send the numbers of the grant for posting?
yeah, let me take a look.
Thanks.
I'd like to bring up one more consideration, which is the capacity of the web server. If we start to upload raw data for Grape 2, that's going to be about 10.3 gigabytes per day per station. And I don't know, we haven't solved the bandwidth problem yet. So I don't know if that's actually going to be doing, we're going to do that in real time, or most stations would be able to do it in real time or not. But ultimately, we want to think about that when we're planning the capacity of the server to include the raw data for Grape 2.
well, the Natural Science Foundation has informed Nathaniel that they have recommended phase 2 of the personal space with the station network, the DAISY project, to be funded. And we have included funding for it, including that. There's a UA part which we're anticipating being able to add 10 to 15 terabytes per year for storage. Now, we need to sit down with a pencil and figure out how much that adds up to using the most recent information. Another thing is Bill, is that raw, completely raw, or is that compressed?
That's raw. if you compress it, you could get it down to about 4 gig per day.
Yeah,
So-
because one of the, yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be better for the upload to compress it before uploading, but if you really don't have the capacity to do that, it can be compressed on the server too, because we have done
Yeah.
things like that. So,
Yeah, FTP anyway has a compression option to do it and, while it's streaming, but I don't know.
mhm.
I don't know which way you want to, compress it on the client or the server. I mean, doing it on the client would significantly reduce bandwidth requirements for
I
the,
think for a lot of users, I mean, it's really only a relatively small number of people who have fiber to the desktop at this point, and that's what you'd need for uploading the full uncompressed file,
Yeah.
I think. You couldn't get it here for any price. You simply not available.
yeah, most people are the same way, but I was just thinking about server, capacity, more than upload capacity, but
Well,
you
our
have a grant,
server,
yeah.
our server is they do everything with virtual machines, and
Yeah.
if I want more cores on the server, all I do is tell them, and I have it in 5 minutes. I mean, they have a one of these server rooms that looks like something out of Star Wars. They have to do that in order to keep up with Auburn. I like to hear it when it's announced that Auburn is upgraded. That means we'll be getting a whole bunch of new stuff in our server room as well.
So not all the competition happens on the football field, you're saying?
Right. It happens in every realm of, I mean, they even have this thing where the schools compete on how much canned food they can collect for feeding the hungry. And, how many truckloads did we raise? Well, we raised another truckload beyond what you did. I mean, beat Auburn, beat hunger. It's actually
We have that one between CU and CSU, definitely.
Okay. So, but I think the issue of the capacity of the storage capacity is one we can deal with. I mean,
Well, that seems to be our issue with GoDaddy, so that would be great.
yeah.
Good.
I mean, there's also always the question of you got to be thinking about, do we have the capacity to analyze that data? Now, there is somebody got a grant to put in a high performance computing center within UA. They're supposed to have that up and running by the end of next year. So maybe we can do that too. I don't know. I mean, it might just largely depend on funding. But if you can write a convincing argument for what we're going to do once we have data of that magnitude, it might be possible to find some funding somewhere for it. Who knows?
One of the things that I think would be an important requirement of whatever repository you have would be the ability to look at the files almost in real time. I know that Bill Blackwell and the New England group always download their data and are able to put together some very impressive maps, making comparisons, looking at the Doppler shifts. And so would the system that we ultimately put in have the ability to be able to be tapped into as easily as we have it right now with our very open FTP server? And so however you collected the data, it'd be really nice to be able to look at the data right away.
Well, you can do that now with the U of A system. It's pretty slick, actually, so.
With
A
that
few
particular
clicks.
presentation, yeah, but I was just wondering, would that be the same thing that we could have, do you think, Bill?
Well, if I had my druthers, if we started bringing in the data that we're talking about here, I would put it hook it up to where every time anything comes in, it automatically generates a plot. And I mean, those plots are just the first simple thing I thought of to put on. There could be other things added to that because we have a queuing system. As files come in, the plot jobs are added to a queue, so they're processed as the server can get to them. But you can always put more cores on, and You know, I mean, it's a big data problem, and the university.
You have
seems-
students ready to tackle it, right?
Well, we do
Well,
have,
there,
but we are also going to, and this is part of the current proposal that is being recommended for funding. We are going to put this server under professional management, so it won't just be students managing it. You know, I told them yesterday, I had a meeting with our IT team day before yesterday. I told them this thing is going to get too big for one old man and two CS students to manage. And they said, sure, if the funding is there, we'll put it under the same production system, because I'm with the Center for Advanced Public Safety, and we manage all of the law enforcement systems and all of that for the whole state. So we have multiple data centers, and so we'll put it under professional management, complete with dashboards and 24/7 monitoring and all of that. That's what's in the current plan. And if there's a need to add some more capacity to deal with all this other data, I think we can find a way. I mean, I'm sure it would make Nathaniel happy to have it all in one system, if we can do that. So.
one other comment on upgrading the Grape 1 FL Digis. When it comes time to, move to a new server, I think you're all figured it out that, each user will probably have to go in there and make some modifications to their software and their original Grape 1. The good thing is everybody who's got one running pretty much had gone through John's original multi-page 55-step setup and that sort of thing and was successful at it. So I think the user base has the skills, but it'll probably be the usual 80-20 rule. 80% of the people will move over to the new server quickly, and the other 20 will either be tardy or fall off. So, but I'm pretty confident that the user community can get it done.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the people who are doing this for the most part are pretty motivated.
And I'd sure like to see step-by-step procedures, because I'm not much of a computer programmer. And I'm running both original Grape FL Digi and the newer CDRF version.
Well, Joe, you can be one of our beta testers.
I've done that before.
Yeah, we'll put together procedures and then have you run through them, and then we'll work together to improve it to the point where it's understandable as it needs to be to the layperson.
Well, I did that with John with his step-by-step procedure, and that turned out pretty well. I do have a comment. The ARRL has recently gotten their computer system hacked pretty badly. When you're talking about under professional management, does that reduce the risk of a similar thing happening to this data center? I see Gary shaking his head yes, or nodding yes.
One would certainly think that would be part of it. A complete security review of the system is one of the things that's a high priority when we start expanding the system. Actually, I have put some protections on this server that actually are above and beyond what most of the university servers have, because I knew we would have a lot of external users. So.
Well, there are several countries in this world that don't like us very much and are very happy to make our life as miserable as possible. So I appreciate every step in that direction.
Oh, yeah, that is certainly something we agree with. And if they think they're ever going to get ransom money out of us, they can been dreaming. Because the state is not going to pay ransom.
$1 million for defense and not 1 cent for tribute. Yes.
Right.
So back up your data.
Yeah, that's why we have an offsite backup, and
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That all sounds very promising. Any other questions or comments or concerns?
A quick one. I've got both you, Rachel, and Christina on here. Has anyone had a chance to look at the original Grape data? I'm cranking out a bunch of stuff and there's all sorts of interesting features courtesy of Solar Maximum. I just wonder, is anybody actually looking at that to see if there's something that should receive quick attention?
Do you mean like the plots Bill Blackwell sends out?
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing. I didn't understand that.
Are you saying just looking at like the real time or day-to-day Grape data?
Yeah, something like that. Somebody may be monitoring and just looking and, oh, that day looked pretty regular and whoa, what's this big feature around in the traces?
Yeah, Bill Blackwell actually, you may want to ask about getting on this mailing list. But he actually sends out like a list of wide area, multi-area, or wide, like the wide area, the Northeast kind of Grape sections in different plots every day, which is really nice to look at if you're looking at day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, he's got a nice collection of stations he's working with.
Yeah,
I
and
I can add you to the distribution list, Joe, if you like. You know, and I can also create other groups, you know, in addition to the ones I'm plotting now, that show the clustering, you know, and the agreement or disagreement, you know, correlation of different plots in different regions. As anybody wishes, we can easily generate those. But as far as correlating it with solar events or, you know, other things going on, I don't do anything like that. That would have to be Rachel and Christina, you know, Nathaniel.
Okay,
I can tell you that I'm looking at those plots every day and I definitely look forward to them very much. There's definitely some current stuff going on with the Doppler flash analysis. This was the stuff that Shibaji presented at HamSci. And we have a paper that's sitting at about the 90% level, but he's got some other things he needs to get through before we can submit that. So it's getting active analysis from the geospace side. From the math side, I know there's some folks at the case math department who have been looking at it from a, you know, more theoretic point of view, but I would defer to Rachel on details for that.
that's an interesting graph I see on my screen.
yeah, this is from yesterday, and then I'll pull. But it is very nice to get these just like direct to your inbox every day. And if you check, you can kind of check the space weather and then check the Grape plots.
Is that a peak there at is there a peak at 2208 in that one? Yeah, that's about right. So that peak right there that Rachel's cursor is on, that was an M class, that was an M5 solar flare. So you can, when you see a peak like that, it usually means there is a solar flare, and I find it to be a fun little thing to go and check spaceweather.com and see if I can guess what class it was. It's sort of what I do instead of Wordle nowadays. I get built email and then I check for the solar flares. One of the things with it is that, you know, because the Doppler flash is influenced by the location of the stations, we will tend to see the ones that are in that second half of the plot because they're happening at night. They'll have that more distinct Doppler shift. But Shibaji and I have not backtracked yet, but the correlations are really beautiful. Like, I think this is an excellent way to measure this. I'm looking forward to getting it out there. So in summary, please do keep collecting data. We are looking at it.
Hey, that's super. One last question. I sent a bunch of graphs and data into the FCC in response to their request about the May CME. Has anyone heard anything about their analysis of, I assume a lot of other people sent in data also. No one's heard anything. Okay, thank you.
For what it's worth,
Okay.
I sent in separately my CHU data and have not heard anything.
I've got a question. Is anyone monitoring 25 megahertz?
I was until I started monitoring CHU in preparation for the eclipse.
Yeah, interesting. It's being very interesting right now. It had faded out for us in New Hampshire after the May solar geomagnetic storm. Propagation seems to be returning. Sometimes it's S9 and then it fades off and then it comes back again. And this can be day or night. In the RX888 receivers, I know they're doing some Grape work. Would 25 megahertz be in that suite or not?
Yes, there's about 20 sites, 888 sites that are recording all 10
Oh,
of the time channels, including 25 megahertz. So
oh, excellent.
if you go look at one of the, if you search in your database for an RX888 site, any one of them will include recordings from all of the time channels, including 25 megahertz.
Oh, very good.
Rob, we need to put up a 12-meter antenna and a 6-meter antenna at WWV and take advantage of those last two channels.
Sure, that would be wonderful. And it would be really great for us to get remote access to. So we look forward to all that. So
We're working on all that.
yeah, and all of those WWV, W0 WWV are also being recorded by all of the Whisper Demon sites. That includes the Kiwis, but there's 40. I think there's almost 40 now. 888 Whisper Demon 888 sites, and not all of them are recording to the Grape database, but they're all listening for your WWV0 transmissions and recording it. They go both to WhisperNet, but the more detailed ones, which include the 1/10 of a hertz resolution frequencies, as well as the spreading information, the Doppler information, that data is in the Whisper Demon extended spot database. All of that's access to those records is all on the Whisper Demon .org database webpage. So, by the way, our recordings, I found that the FLAC is a dramatically better than using a general purpose compression. You can get 90% compression ratios off of FLAC if you use it even on almost random noise data. So in transferring data and storing data in Whisper Demon, I run the WAV files through FLAC and store them as FLAC compressed files. So and in the Whisper Demon architecture, we store the recordings locally. I have some sites with 15 terabyte local drives, and that's enough to record save over a year's worth of data locally. So I'm those Whisper Demon Grape sites have a month, or in one case over a year's worth of losslessly compressed recordings of all of the time channels. So if you wanted to go back in time, you could go back and get any minute from any day and get any one of the time channels from there. So I would think that rather than trying to centralize the storage of such volumes of data, that one would want to leave that data on local storage, although of course it's more vulnerable there, but it's in some ways, of course, to local failures. But it also distributes the cost and eliminates the cost of transferring all of that data, uncompressed or even compressed data, up to a central server. But anyway, that's the way I've done it in Whisper Daemon.
Okay, if there are no further questions on that, I do think, Kazdan, did you still want to talk about Costas arrays? And or the Grape 2? Is this a question or a statement?
I think he's muted.
Is
Check.
David trying to tell us something? David, you're muted.
You're correct. Sorry about that. And chat, Matt Deutsch from WWV sent a note to me 2 days ago that there are some abrupt power changes on 10 megahertz. So you might want to take a look at your traces and see if you can identify those. That's item one. Item two, I do have a senior project group started about Costas arrays, which may wind up being the next scientific signal on WWV. As Christina can testify, once you know about these and have thought about them a little, you start seeing them everywhere. So maybe Christina can comment on that. And Rachel, let's talk about whether I can impose on you to give a mathy talk for the club about Costas arrays to get things started, perhaps working with John Agrinian. If you don't want to, it's okay, but if I might impose on you.
No,
And
I've been kick off a WADD journal club of some sort anyway.
I think it's time. We've been talking about it for years, especially now with the station down. Yes, I think at least a monthly journal club would be a really good thing. And finally, interesting Grape 2 deployment. The 2nd of October is an annular solar eclipse that is aligned with WWVH roughly the same way the April eclipse was aligned with CHU. We have volunteers in Falkland Islands who will be monitoring, and it looks like one of the radio club students, Maris Usis, who was part of the CHU group and is continuing in his master's degree in that, will actually personally travel to Patagonian Chile, the bustling metropolis of Tortel. Take a look at this one on a map. Carry radio equipment with him, including a Grape 2, and monitor at least a couple of WWVH frequencies. So say nice things to Maris. This is a big adventure trip for him. That's what I had to say, Rachel. I will remute.
Well, before you do, have I spelled Mars's name correctly?
Let me, yes. And it's
Okay.
USIS, and I'll find his call sign.
That sounds very cool. Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Rachel, is there any update on getting the one Grape 2 back from Colorado?
I have sent everything I have to Zorman, and Zorman has confirmed receipt. But other than that, I'm afraid
We're working on it.
That's
Oh.
fine. John's probably too busy to refurbish those things anyhow at the moment, so we've definitely got time.
Rachel, have you had a chance to get the reimbursement to the guy in, what was it? South Carolina?
We're working on that too.
Okay.
Yeah. Those things are out of my hands. I have transferred the information. Passed it along the net, if you will. It's nice to see you on the Grape call. Yeah, I'll file that probably under under this update, unfortunately. Although Zorman is working on it, is probably still news. All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
I see that the registration for AGU in December in Washington DC is now open, so I don't know if anybody's planning on going, but you can get your name in the pot.
Yeah. And does anyone want me to leave the Zoom channel open for troubleshooting or conversations? All right. 7-3.